Hello guys and welcome in Chocozone podcast. The big tank of cocoa is in Africa and there it is such complicated to be care about farmers and cocoa producer status. Sometimes there are something different and we love a lot to talk about the people that take care about sustainability, attention, to not use the child labor that is really so common in this part of the world. And we love also to talk about the people that could also make a good production of chocolate. Yes, this time we meet a good guy that has decided to live in Uganda and he make chocolate from cocoa beans taken directly from families that meet a lot of times each month and with whom he has created a partnership to try to grow together. Hello guys, welcome in our Choco Zone. This time we are in Africa and we are with our guest, Jeff Steinberg from Latitude Trade & Co. Hello Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hi, Jeff. It is a pleasure, a big pleasure. Where are you now exactly?
Right now, I'm in Kampala, Uganda. This is where I
Wow,
live.
in the heart of Africa.
The Pearl of Africa, they call it.
So usually we ask to our guests to introduce themselves, and so also for you, tell us how was your life before to arrive in the chocolate market, and what is your personal history? What did you make before to start with this business?
Yeah, of course. I founded Latitude Trade Company in 2017. We're a social enterprise based here in Uganda, working with now almost 3,000 smallholder farmers throughout the country, cocoa producers, and we produce specialty cocoa, essentially fermented organic certified cocoa, and bean to bar chocolate here in Kampala, due in part to our friends at FPM for their machinery. We're a Ugandan organization. We're about 40 staff kind of spread across the country, and we really got into chocolate making. My personal history is in agricultural development, so working with different companies throughout sub-Saharan Africa to improve the way they work with smallholder farmers in a more mutually beneficial way. And I came to Uganda in 2016 or 17 with an idea in mind to do something similar in cocoa. It was done in coffee. And so a lot of my research and academic background led me to the cocoa sector, where I just had this crazy idea to produce a chocolate bar completely in Uganda with Ugandan cocoa.
Great.
And we really got into chocolate making to help us improve the quality of our cocoa. And it was a small step adding sugar into the liquor to start making chocolate, which kind of brought us to where we are today.
How did you get to the chocolate as a consumer? And how did you get to the bean to bar chocolate making? And how did you understand how to do that, how to produce chocolate?
It was quite a learning process. So my history background, I grew up on the American brands of chocolate, and I really only got interested in premium chocolate and craft chocolate once I was working in the specialty coffee industry and starting to understand how some of these value chains work.
So you were not used to Hershey chocolate?
I mean, normally, yes. I grew up with Hershey's, of course, yes. But you only really begin to appreciate once you understand how to appreciate different products like a wine or a cheese or a coffee, for me. Mm-hmm. And that led me to think, okay, well, why then am I eating this kind of chocolate? Maybe there's a better chocolate out there. So we really, the idea was really how can we use some of the same tools and methods happening in the coffee industry, the transparency, the traceability, the premium quality, and apply those to the cocoa sector. And so that's kind of how we got our foot in the door there. And really learning about chocolate was, like many bean to bar makers, you're talking to other people in the industry, anybody who will answer questions. you're experimenting, too much experimentation and failure, and you're producing a lot of poor quality product before you figure out how to make it nice and the way you'd like it to taste. So we're really lucky that we work with a lot of really great chocolate makers in Europe and the US who use our cocoa, and so they've always been very gracious and helpful for us when I'm visiting them and learning from their factories, and also when they're coming to visit us, to train our staff and to help us kind of build our products and our chocolate production.
The bean to bar born at the modern bean to bar modern in US. You are from there, so what was your knowledge about this moment when you started, and how is now?
Yeah, I mean, my knowledge when I started was very limited. I would reach out to anybody who I thought had a connection to bean to bar and who would talk to me and give me some small pieces of information that I could take and expand on. And gradually, I think over the past 3 or 4 years, you attend events, you attend different promotions, you engage with different folks, and have come to build out our network and a better understanding of craft chocolate. And so, yeah, now it's part of the best thing about bean to bar craft chocolate is the community. And so going back to the US now, I'm always visiting different factories and meeting people just to learn and exchange, because it's really, it's amazing. I think it's growing, it's growing in Europe, as you're aware, but in the US still, significantly more bean to bar makers coming on board with really unique products, and also existing bean to bar makers really scaling up and building their capacity, which is really exciting on all fronts.
Yeah. Let's talk about the brand. Okay, do you feel as your company as one of the pioneer of the US typical bean to bar chocolate maker, or because you are located where you are located, you want to give some I don't know specification, extra feature to your brand because you are producing the chocolate in Uganda?
Yeah, I would say we're definitely a step after the pioneers of the US craft chocolate movement. We're definitely a little bit late to the game on that front.
Because it's 2017, you said.
Yeah, really, scaling up in the past 2018-19. For us, our interest really is to help build out capacity to manufacture and produce chocolate in the origin country. And so that's kind of how we like to carve out our space. The US is quite far from Uganda, and logistics and everything, it's not really our prime marketplace. But what we'd like to do as a business for anybody in the world is to make sustainability a little bit more affordable and quality chocolate affordable, so that people can have everything that they want, traceability, full direct supply chain, production at origin, creation of jobs, while still enjoying a nice chocolate bar that you can buy every week or however often.
And talking about Uganda as a market, I mean, is it used to a commercial taste? Do you have to explain the difference between the commercial chocolate and the bean to bar chocolate? How is the average consumer over there?
Yeah, the average consumer is very price sensitive. The market is definitely very commercial, so you get the big brands who can afford kind of importation and duties to getting it here. So definitely it's a big task to explain to people the difference between what we're producing, what they're producing, why they should be paying more for their cocoa beans or their chocolate. So that's definitely something that we engage with other brands in the US and Europe about, because they're facing some of these same challenges, which is how do we educate people and make them understand this very big supply chain, and also the very intense process of producing chocolate, so that we can make that case. So in Uganda, lucky for us, there's a big interest and movement to support locally by the government, but also by the people. And so that's kind of where we gain a lot of traction. And we set up our factory in a way, and you can see in some pictures, in a way such that people can view the process as many bean to bar makers have it, so that we can assist in that education, part of the business, which is very key to selling the brand locally.
But do you succeed? I mean, the consumer get what you are explaining, and they want to, I don't know, improve the quality of the food they can eat, or anyway, no matter what, but they want to buy cheap chocolate.
No, I mean, you get wins and losses here and there, right? I mean, obviously in Uganda, there is definitely, challenges. I mean, there's a lot of poverty in the country, right? So there's only a certain subset of the population, which is middle class and upper class, who can buy even the imported cheaper chocolates, right? So that is definitely a challenge for us. But what we see is when we put out a brand, I mean, our brand is very much Ugandan inspired. And people relate to that sort of message and story. And then when they come in the factory and they really understand everything that the process is, and when they see our social and our marketing, they begin to understand this whole process, and there is that desire and interest to support locally. But like anybody in bean to bar, it's a process. It's a process to build that knowledge.
I think you are using only Uganda beans, or did you try, or are you trying also from other origins? And tell us something more about the cocoa beans you could find in Uganda, the specific flavor, aromas that you could find there.
Yeah, definitely. So our main focus is, as a brand, is on Ugandan flavors. So at the moment, right now, as I speak right now, purely using Ugandan beans and Ugandan other flavors like Ugandan vanilla, coffee, sesame, all these things sourced locally in a similar way that we source our cocoa. Ugandan cocoa is, it's wonderful. So we have a few different origins, micro regions throughout the country, all with some slight kind of differences in the flavor. But really what you get is a variety of flavors. You get definitely very strong cocoa, chocolate, fudge, brownie, if you want it, which is great for our couvertures and our pralines and bonbon. And you can also get some bright fruits, which we have some of in our single origin chocolate bars. So red fruits, some regions have kind of more dried brown fruits, which is really nice to be able to provide that range. And then starting this year, we're finally starting to work in a similar way that we work in Uganda, but across the border in Congo, on the other side of the mountains. And so that'll be the next country that we introduce in our product line.
You mentioned at the beginning that you have a direct relationship with the cocoa farmers. And I guess you sell cocoa beans all over the world, in many countries. Can you tell us something about the relationship? How is it a direct relation with a cocoa farmer? I mean, it's not just as a chocolate maker visiting once in a year a farm and just having a far relationship with them. You keep on having a relationship continuously, consistent.
For sure. So I would say the majority of our staff actually works out in the farms in the western part of the country. Coordinating the farmers, and so we provide a long-term contract. We provide training, financial literacy training and support with regards to access to microfinance and other, development tools that can help them build their business. And then every week throughout the year, basically almost year-round, we're buying cocoa from them at set collection points in their village. And so farmers will come carrying fresh cacao on their heads to our collection points, where they're paid cash on delivery by the Latitude buying team. We register full traceability in our digital traceability system. And every purchase is face-to-face interaction, basically every 1 to 2 weeks. And so that is part of our commitment to farmers, which is that we give them the schedule. We say, we will be here on these days with cash to buy any cocoa you give us. And that's part of our commitment, and we stay there year-round rather than just coming in and out of the season, because we understand that there is support and there's need in the off-season to help those farmers continue their business even when the cocoa harvest reduces slightly. And so being able to, on the one hand, we work with amazing customers who allow us this kind of flexibility to just continue buying and to pay a premium price to those farmers. In addition to that, by producing chocolate and a bit of cocoa powder and butter at origin, gives us some flexibility to ensure that we can always be there because we have different outlets for the cocoa. And so that the relationship with the farmers is really the core of the business, and that's what makes it so enriching.
Can you tell us which is the difference in this relationship with the cocoa farmer between a company like yours and the big companies that buy, I guess, a lot more cocoa beans from them?
Yeah. Also because Africa world for cocoa is a dangerous place. We know, we have seen videos, stories, complicated. So from Ghana, from Cote d'Ivoire, also something from Uganda, where these big companies, or also some traders, they want only the good price. They are not careful about who is working in the plantations, and so instead I think that the cocoa beans, the artisan cocoa beans movement could help, and somebody like you that is there could do more, I think, and I hope. So tell us the difference, please.
Yeah, so the difference really, our model of sourcing is very what we call high touch. It means that we are regularly visiting the farms and inspecting them in order to provide that guarantee about where the cocoa is coming from, what are the conditions on the farms, and what is the situation surrounding the cacao. So that is part of the reason why we're there year-round and why we have such an extensive field network, and also why the cocoa costs slightly more, because it's just expensive to be out at the farms on a regular basis. We're talking about almost 3,000 farmers. Each of those farmers may have 2 to 3 plots of farm that they're growing cacao, and our staff have to individually visit them 2, 3, 4 times a year to do these inspections, in addition to the trainings that we conduct, the buying on a regular basis. And so our model, by farmers delivering the fresh cacao on the same day that they harvest it, allows us to better monitor harvesting and production processes, and also allows us to know exactly who is supplying the cacao, because it's fresh and we can see when it has come from yesterday or the day before. And so being able to register that full traceability and understand that person's farm and where they're located is a big differentiating factor, especially in a region where the border is a bit porous, and once you dry the cacao and it's you can store it for a long time, you can buy it from one person, a middleman, or even a farmer or a cooperative, and you cannot be 100% sure where it has come from or what price that farmer has gotten for the cacao. And so a lot of this is not necessarily the fault of the bigger companies that they want to do bad or anything like that, right? A lot of it is about the market pressures on price and on logistics and things like that, which force people to try and squeeze to get their margin. And our business model as a company, both on the sourcing side and also on the chocolate production side, is designed so that we don't have to fall to that pressure. And we can do things the right way without worrying about, where is the cocoa gonna go, and making sure that we survive. So really, it's about transparency, it's about traceability, and this is what part of our guarantee. If we don't guarantee that, then we don't really have a business, and you might as well buy the cheaper cocoa, right? So this is everything that's we're built on.
Yeah. Back to chocolate. Which is your main market? Can you sell abroad or just locally? Or do you have some dealers, importers, exporters? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we started, of course, in Uganda, trying to push push and get people, you know, from the big brands to bean to bar, and it's still a very good market for us. Also, we sell a lot into Europe, Benelux, Germany region, with a distributor there based out of Netherlands, the UK, Japan, and we're trying to get things going in both the US and Kenya as we speak. So really a lot of volume moving to Europe, and it's just, as you may have alluded to, a challenge with cold logistics and the tropical climate.
Yeah. And how is it going right now? Because the costs are increasing and increasing.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. Air freight we're mostly shipping our chocolate via air freight. Yeah, it's increasing a bit. But you know, we're shipping in bigger quantities and pretty reliable with the freight providers, and so we're able to lock in some, you know, some discounts ahead of time. But definitely, I think this year it's going to get a little bit challenging, and so that's part of the reason as well why we're very keen to continue and build out the local East African market in Kenya and Tanzania, where it's just, you know, a little bit easier to access.
Do you think this year you are going to be at a certain point increase the prices of your bars?
I don't think so. So the beauty of our business model is that, you know, with the vertical integration where we're working directly with the farmers, buying the cacao from them and producing the chocolate bars, our prices out of the factory, there's no real need to change. Because the fuel expenses don't impact as much the cost of transporting the cocoa. Where the price may change is once it arrives in the selling country. And so for us, we have one price out of the factory, and your savings comes by how much volume you order, because that gets you the savings on the freight and logistics, right? So if those freight and logistics goes up, then obviously we have to find a way to solve that problem in the destination country. But so far, so good.
You make chocolate bars and also pralines. Which is your best-selling product?
Definitely, I would say the bars so far. For us, praline bonbon, we're, you know, still learning and mostly supplying the local market just because of the food's, you know, the shelf life and shipping and melting. And so the bars are definitely popular, especially 2-ingredient chocolate bars. So we do an 80% and a 70%.
Can you show us your bars, please?
Yeah, of course. So these are the 80 and the 70. We have these conzo, these coffee, a dark milk. We do a caramelized white chocolate with local cocoa butter. And these two bars have been our limited edition, but they're now moving into the permanent packaging. We actually make a 100% chocolate bar and a vanilla.
And which is the best seller among those?
So among those, the 70% 2-ingredient chocolate bar really is our kind of marquee product. Locally, it's a little bit different. In East Africa, the taste preference is a little bit sweeter. So definitely you find people prefer the white chocolates and the milk chocolates.
Oh, white chocolate, really?
I mean, white chocolate.
The white chocolate, but made with the powerful cocoa butter. A very tasty cocoa butter. I mean, white chocolate, the problem with white chocolate, well, the fact that the white chocolate, at least here in Europe, is that mainly they use cocoa butter that is deodorized, decolorized, you know, so it doesn't have the original taste. I guess that your white chocolate is kind of, you're using kind of more powerful and tasty cocoa butter because you don't process it. Am I right?
Obviously there's no deodorization, you know, in the region. We press some of our beans into powder and cocoa butter, and that we started to do that. We got into that business because we needed the butter for chocolate, and so now we ship quite a bit of that powder to Europe, to sell to some of the same bean to bar craft chocolate makers, and most of that butter we use at our own factory. So yeah, it has that nice, especially Ugandan cacao has a really nice, clean, crisp, chocolatey flavor, and it really shines through in a natural cocoa butter. So it's really nice to use in a white chocolate, but also in the couvertures and in the darker chocolates as well. It has a a nice push to it.
Look, how important is the technology in the whole process? And there are some parts of the process where you think that technology is more important than others, and why?
Yeah, I think for us, the technology which is most important, probably, I mean, both stages, refining and tempering is probably the most crucial stage for us, because of the conditions around the factory and the conditions in the country, and just how challenging it is to get the right balance, where normally it's humidity levels that you cannot believe. And so, we're
all the year, or it's something seasonal?
No, it's all year.
You haven't know there's no
There's no break. There's some rainy seasons and some dry seasons, but even the dry season, 60% relative humidity. Routinely, we're actually at 0 degrees. We're on the equator exactly. And so for us, obviously the refining, we've been able to improve our technology from moving into our big factory to get more consistency in terms of the particle size distribution and the conching. But really for me, and I think most of our team, the most important thing is the tempering aspect. Not just that we have everything dialed in properly, but that it's reliable. We're not having breakdowns, and it's dependable.
Okay.
So I think with any bean to bar maker, right, there is a high degree of manual labor involved in the process. And so, being able to get through this stage of our company in terms of the volume is mainly a testament to our chocolate makers. We have 9 Ugandan chocolate makers who are just superb and really, have learned to manage the factory in a really great way.
Well, I have known that a few weeks ago you organized also a tour. Tell us something about it. This is another opportunity for you and for the people that love cocoa and chocolate.
Yeah. Yes. This is an extension of our education kind of interests and motivations. We work together. Over the years, we're always giving tours to cocoa bean customers who come to do their investigations, to see the facilities, meet the farmers. And oftentimes those customers want to see the tourist sites as well. And so we've been learning how to bring these two things together, visiting cacao farms, the facilities, and also seeing lions and elephants and things like that. And so this year we did our first real commercial tour, which was a great success. We hosted about 26 people through a chocolate company in the US called Mocha Origins, who you're familiar with. And together we coordinated a tour of all of Uganda, basically integrating both tourist scenes. So we did chimpanzee trekking in the wild. Then we went to harvest on cacao farms together with the farmers. Then we went to the safari park and saw elephants and lions. Then we went to the cacao processing facility, and we integrated the agricultural tour with a view of Uganda over about a 10-day period. It was really, truly amazing to get both of these things together, not just cacao, but we also source vanilla for our chocolate bar, right? And so we saw the vanilla farmers and the vanilla processing facility. Same with the coffee, right? We met the coffee farmers. And it was just a beautiful mix of, we call it agrotourism.
Sure.
And so this is something that we're building and starting to do this year and in the future years, which is organize tours like this to help people not just see all the amazing things about Uganda and Africa, but also learn about the value chain and learn how people's lives are behind the products.
This is something that any chocolate maker in the world should do, an experience that suggested for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I think oftentimes we get the bigger companies, right? Because many small companies, you know, it's a budget thing. Yeah. But that's also part of why we're doing it like we're doing it, because really it's a they call it a bucket list trip. It's a once in a lifetime thing to come and see Uganda, and we'll organize everything from start to finish, all meals, trucks, cars, everything included. And you get to accomplish both at once, rather than just going under your business. We brought, I think this past trip, we had 2 families. We had about 4 or 5 kids, you know, between the ages of like 5 and 15.
It's amazing.
Yes, I mean, it's a beautiful place to visit, an easy place to travel. And we have folks on our staff who are quite experienced at arranging tours and have been active in the tourism industry. So it's pretty natural kind of integration for us, which is really exciting.
How many people are working in the company?
In our company, we have about 40 full-time staff. I would say about right now 37 are Ugandan nationals. And then in addition to that, we engage maybe an additional 40 or 50 staff on a seasonal basis during the cocoa main harvest.
Jeff, we have quite finished our episode, so the last question we do to anyone, our guest, is how do you see your company within the next 10 years, and how do you see also the chocolate in Uganda and also the cocoa farmers in Uganda, so they could improve their status or not? How do you see?
Definitely. We're starting with the farms and the cocoa in Uganda. Really what we're building towards is helping farmers improve the productivity of existing lands and integrate agroforestry programs, while also diversifying their incomes and being able to provide them with access to other markets. So that's really important for us, not just growing the cocoa supply and improving the quality of cocoa in Uganda, but also making sure that incomes and wealth for the farmers follow behind. And so this is really what we're building towards in the future, either a growth of the land under production, or most importantly, a growth in the wealth, people moving from thatched roofs to iron sheet roofs, things like that. For the company, and Uganda has a tremendous amount of room to grow more cacao, which is really exciting. For our company, our ambitions are really, you know, to help push forward this craft chocolate movement. So obviously we love to produce more and more chocolate at origin. We forever will maintain our relationships with wonderful chocolate makers who have supported us from the beginning. And as the volumes grow, hopefully we'll grow with those customers. And of course, we'll be building more and more machines at origin, developing new origins to help, you know, improve and kind of create more value locally, so that we can kind of contribute to that wealth building. So 2030, let's see.
You will be still young. How old are you? How old are you?
I always have a home here. My dogs are here. My life is here. You know, we'll always be here. It's just how big and how soon, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time, for your story, and we hope to do a tour in Uganda as soon as we can, for sure. Maybe in the next one.
Definitely welcome you. It'll be an amazing experience, and thank you guys for having me. And thank you guys so much for, you know, the support and the partnership and everything. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Bye-bye.
Bye.